Cataclismo blends physics, tower defense, and a weak real-time strategy element. It may not be the ideal choice for players seeking a challenging experience or an introductory title into this niche genre. While the game does demonstrate ambition, it is a feat few games can truly perfect. The primary concern with Cataclismo lies with the inconsistent focus, often drifting between different gameplay elements without ever fully committing to one, making it difficult for players to engage with the core mechanics when it's constantly pulling you out. At its heart, the game functions as an engine designed and integrated with the Steam Workshop, providing a platform where players can experiment with and share custom content. This is where the game's true potential lies, offering a unique way for the community to contribute and interact with one another. If you're expecting meaningful progression where your choices have a lasting impact on the campaign or even on endless mode, you may be left feeling very disappointed. Skirmish mode offers a decent experience, but the lack of fresh content quickly leads to repetition. The same could be said for survival mode, since all it does is add in a little bit of a roguelike element. This is where the community-driven levels and content come into play, offering a temporary diversion, though they cannot fully alleviate the underlying issues with the game's pacing and also its depth. The story of Cataclismo unfolds in a world on the brink of collapse. Humanity's last stronghold, known as Hogar, sits high upon the hills, surrounded by a toxic mist that has been consuming the earth. The remnants of humanity depend on elite defenders, individuals who can commune with an ancient and dangerous power capable of rewriting history. Yet despite their valiant efforts, the defenders find themselves facing inevitable extinction, with no clear solution in sight as death looms ever closer. One fateful night, the scholars of Hogar discover an infant left on her doorstep, but this was no ordinary child. This child was actually infused by a fragment of the Alta Perlis' power considered fatal to humans, which essentially made it become the past, future, and present for humanity's survival. Fearful and hopeful, the scholars accepted this strange gift and raised the child as one of their own. Over the years, under their guidance, she undergoes intense training, becoming one of the city's most skilled defenders. But despite her extraordinary abilities, including the power to rewind time itself, she finds that every attempt to alter humanity's fate has always proven futile. In the end, disheartened and unsure of her place in this world, she descends into the depths of the abyss following the trail of clues left behind throughout history, seeking the truth of who or what she truly is. With no more hope to offer the people she's fought to protect for so long, she embarks on this final journey to uncover the answers that could change everything for her. At first glance, Cataclismo gives off a strong impression of being a horde survival game, similar to They Are Billions, where massive waves of enemies make survival a constant struggle. However, the reality is quite different. Instead of offering a fast-paced, survival-focused experience, the game turns into a drawn-out, stylistic, story-driven creative sandbox. One moment you're focused on gathering resources and preparing for the next night of horrors, but in the next, you're abruptly pulled into a narrative shift that completely breaks the flow of gameplay and essentially ends the session. This is frustrating, especially since it often feels like you never really had a chance to survive. Why feature these levels if the outcome is already predetermined? It would have been much more effective if these narrative moments were confined to their own story mode section, pushing plot forward without disrupting the actual gameplay. With the release of The Abyss, the game offers only 17 campaign levels, which range from 3 minutes to 30 minutes of actual gameplay, and much of that time is spent in the pause menu. This becomes especially frustrating when you realize you're spending more time meticulously building defenses than actually engaging in gameplay. You have the option to design your own defenses or use blueprints from the Steam Workshop, where players share their own creations. However, there's a catch. These blueprints are often disabled for certain levels. This forces you to rebuild everything from scratch, often making it difficult to maintain your alignments, especially with players who are detail-oriented and bothered with even the slightest imperfections. As a result, a lot of your time is going to be eaten up just trying to get things right. After all of that effort spent constructing your walls, placing towers, and recruiting the ranged units you need, and then positioning them for defenses and expeditions, you're suddenly faced with the harsh reality that it was all for nothing when the game suddenly ends before you even had a chance to see it all come together. This does mostly refer to the campaign mode, which was just an extremely drawn-out linear tutorial. The defense building aspect is by far the best feature in the entire game. There are so many different styles and strategies to experiment with, but they all feel wasted because you can never truly utilize them fully unless you're playing on a custom level or skirmish mode. Endless mode and survival mode, for example, are heavily restricted, with a leveling system based on how many nights you survived and a military cap of just 70 units when you get it fully leveled up. These limitations only serve to frustrate you, undermining Cataclysmo's potential. Building walls and layering them with platforms and stability is very satisfying, and watching your defenses hold up against the enemy is very rewarding. However, the appeal quickly fades away when you finally realize that the same 7 enemies will never be able to manage to break through your defenses, as they can be made nearly impenetrable with a basic understanding of the mechanics. If you constructed walls with a 1x1 block, stacking them high will increase their strength, but they will still fall if the very first block is destroyed. Blocks in the center can be interlocked, creating a stable multi-layered defense that will not crumble when a single block is lost, especially when you stack a 1x1 with a 1x2 and a 1x3. You can see that when each piece is removed, it's not taking down the whole building, just a fraction of that supporting frame that's supporting the inner frame where units are being held. In practice, you cannot realistically build these elaborate defenses while managing your resources, as it takes up so much of your time and requires creating multiple layers to function as a proper blockade on certain maps. And that is not a personal challenge from me to you. I know for sure that there are people out there who will refuse to use the pause menu, which will make it next to impossible to survive, but it is still manageable. The key is to create a basic framework for your towers along the bottom and the interior layers. This ensures that the outer layers can crumble without compromising the stability of the inner defenses, which will protect your units. This highlights a crucial issue with the game's lack of challenge. Unless you're willing to endure hours of waiting in endless mode and survival mode, or play on an extreme difficulty, the hordes will never truly threaten your defenses unless they outlast your unit cap. In the end, while creating the perfect defense can be enjoyable, it's very disheartening to know that the game doesn't offer a real challenge unless the difficulty is cranked up. The satisfaction of building all of these intricate defenses is overshadowed by the knowledge that the game will likely end before you even face a true test for your creations outside of sandbox mode, with the severe lack of enemies that are going to be attacking it. Cataclysmo managed to immerse me, but not in the way that I expected. It wasn't the story, the gameplay, or the challenge that stood out. It was again the building system. The ability to design and share structures with the Steam community, and also custom levels, became the main focus for me. I found the building mechanics and the different design strategies interesting, but the biggest issue was not being able to properly test these designs in any meaningful form of gameplay. I expected something similar to They Are Billions. Instead, the gameplay felt slow and repetitive. The enemy waves followed predictable patterns with only minor changes, such as the roguelike rewards in survival mode and a campaign that felt overly guided. With the release of the Abyss campaign and extra modes, it feels a bit lacking, offering nothing more than the Darkness feature. The only real action the player is required to take is the placing of a beacon or two to see what is coming towards them, and that's it. It's the same 7 monsters you've been fighting since the very beginning. Custom maps and endless mode also suffer from the same lack of depth. It's the same gameplay with a different name. Cataclysmo feels like it doesn't have a firm direction on what it wants to be. It is not entirely a tower defense, nor is it fully an RTS, with a severe lack of units and troops. It is both and neither at the same time, feeling very minimalistic, which kind of cancels each other out. I would much rather label it as a creative sandbox that is a portion of what the game could have been if more focus went into all of the elements. If you were to remove the building feature, nothing else would realistically stick out.